Greetings, mathematicians. This morning we're going to start with an I bet word problem for our warm-up. Remember, being able to visualize word problems or draw a picture to help us see them is really important, especially as they get more and more challenging. So remember, I'm going to share one line at a time. Each time I share a line, you're going to add to your mental movie and make a conjecture as to what you think is going to happen next in the story. And then I'm going to have a few people share their conjecture, and then we'll share the next line, and you're going to add to your problem. And we're going to continue to do that until we finally get to the question and solve our problem. Okay, here we go. Our first sentence is, Cohen and Lucy scored 2 goals in their last tournament. So I want you to picture in your head, what do you see in your head? Who would be the actors or actresses in our movie? And what would you need for the scenery behind it? Teachers, pause and have a couple of people share. Okay, what do you think is going to happen next? Teachers, have a couple of people share. If you're at home, I want you to think in your head, what do you think is going to happen next in this story? Okay, Cohen's team scored 7 goals in the tournament. What are you going to add to your mental image or your picture? If you have your whiteboard out, go ahead and draw something so that we can see what you're thinking. What do you think? Share with your elbow partner. What do you think is going to happen next in the story? Let's see. Lucy's team scored 3 times as many goals as Cohen's team. Now what do you see in your picture? Talk about it with your elbow partner. Add to your picture. How could we represent that in a picture? What could we use to show what's happening? What do you think is going to happen next? A couple people raise your hand if you think you know what might happen next. Here's their next line. How many goals did Lucy's team score? Now, before we solve, we need to go back and read the whole thing together and make sure we understand it. Cohen and Lucy scored 2 goals at their last tournament. Cohen's team scored 7 goals at the tournament. Lucy's team scored 3 times as many goals as Cohen's team. My question is, how many goals did Lucy's team score? Now, if you did it in class, have a couple people share. For those of you at home, this is how I might have done it. So I know I've got 2 people, Cohen and I have Lucy. Okay, I could write their whole names or just their initials. First, I have to decide who scored more. Well, I'm comparing the two, but it says Cohen's team scored 7. We know how much he scored. So I have a value for him. I'm going to make one box to show that his team scored 7 goals. Then Lucy's team scored 3 times as many. If I scored 3 times as many, I'm going to be scoring more. So I'm going to take 3 boxes, because if Cohen's team scored 1 box, then Lucy's team would have to score 3 boxes if I was going to show that as a representation. And for each box, I know the value is 7. So if I wanted to know how many goals did Lucy's team score, I could use my comparison bars, and I could figure out that I have 7, 14, 21. So my answer would be Lucy's team scored 21 goals. That's one way you could have represented it. So today we're going to add even another step to what we talked about yesterday. So we're going to still be talking about addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Now we're going to have operators as well. Those operators, we're going to talk about equations sometimes, inequalities. But now our job is going to be determine if they give us an equation or an inequality, and then they tell us what the value of the variable is, if it's a true or a false statement. So this one has another little step to it. So it's really important that we read our questions carefully, that we think about our answers, and that we check by plugging in a number and making sure it actually works. Again, you can use any strategies to calculate. If you like singing the songs, if you like decomposing, maybe you just have all your facts memorized. Our learning target for today is I can use substitution to determine if an equation or an inequality is true or if it's false. So take a second. Do you think if I gave you an equation with a variable and then said that variable is worth 7, could you figure out if that was a true or a false equation or inequality? Would you be at a 1, to a 5? If you're not really sure, because there's kind of a lot of big words in here, maybe you don't even know because you're not even sure what the words mean, so you'd probably be like, maybe you're at a 2 or a 1. You're not even sure really where to begin. So we're going to review some of the vocabulary from yesterday. Equation. Talk to your elbow partner. What do you remember? What was an equation that we talked about yesterday? Teachers pause while students share. Remember, an equation we said was a mathematical sentence. It has a complete thought. It has to have an equal sign because it has the word equation in it. Both sides have to have the same value, and we could actually solve both sides for the value because there's an equal sign. Remember, we can think of it as a balance scale. One side has to be the same as the other to be an equation. Our next vocab word is variable. Okay? Talk to your elbow partner about what word do you hear in there and what was a variable in math. Go ahead and share. A variable, remember, represents a value that can change. Remember, can vary or change. It's usually represented by a letter, like X, Y, A, B, but it could be any letter. So now we've added variables in red to our equations. Our next word is substitution. So share with your table partner, what did we think of? What visual did I think of? I think about like when they substitute, I play volleyball. So the coach will say they have a substitution, blow the whistle, and they'll move their hands. Discuss substitution. So substitution means putting a number value in to replace the variable. Remember when we have a substitute teacher, they come in and replace, they can't replace your teacher, but they come in and they try to make sure learning still happens for your teacher. So when we have substitution in math, we might know what the value of A is and the value of B is. So now we can plug that in, so 6 plus 4, and now I can solve my equation and I can get 10. An inequality. Talk to your table partner about what does an inequality mean again. I see the word equality, which we talked about, and now I have a prefix in front of it. What does that mean in math? An inequality is a relationship that is not equal. So the two sides of the balance are not the same. It does not have an equal sign, and each side of the relationship has a different value. Some inequalities have multiple solutions, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So remember their symbols from yesterday: greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and not equal to. So now I'm going to have the person on the right side of the partnership read this inequality. Again, we're going to always read it like everything we do in math and in reading from left to right. And then after you read it, the other partner is going to say, do they think that this is a true statement or is this a false statement and why? Teachers pause while students share. So if I would read this, I have to start left to right. I'm going to say 40 is greater than or equal to 30. So if I think about that, is 40 greater than or equal to 30? I could use my number chart to help me. So if I think of here's 40, and then I think about where's 30, is 40 greater than or equal to 30? Yes, 40 is bigger, so this would be, because it's true, I'm going to say this is a true inequality statement. Okay. The opposite partner, now you read this inequality, again going left to right. How would we say this? And then the other partner, determine if you agree that this is a true inequality, the way it's written, or is it false? So go ahead, teachers, pause while students discuss. If you need to use a whiteboard to write it down, you can. So first, I'm going to read it left to right. 20 is greater than or equal to 5 times 3. So now I have to decide, well, what is 5 times 3 before I can tell if it's true or false? I know 5 groups of 3 would be 15. Is 20 greater than or equal to 15? It is, so this would be another true statement. Okay, go ahead and work together to read this one. And then work together to figure out, is this a true or a false statement? Well, I'm going to evaluate this side first. 8 groups of 3, 8, 16, 24. So 8 times 3 is less than or equal to 6 times 4. Well, I need to know what 6 times 4 is. 6, 12, 18, 24. Is 24 less than or equal to 24? Well, it is equal to, so this again would be another true statement. Go ahead and talk to your partner. How would we read this inequality? And then determine, is it true or false? If I read it again left to right, I would say 7 plus 9 is not equal to 4 times 4. Now I would have to evaluate to see if it's true or not. 7 plus 9, well, I know that 10 plus 7 would be 17, so it would be 1 less, 16. 4 times 4 is equal to 16. Is 16 not equal to 16? Well, no, that one doesn't make sense. 16 is equal to 16, so this makes it false. It is a false statement. So now we're going to add one more step. We're going to add a variable. So determine if each inequality is true or false for the given value. So go ahead, write this down on your whiteboard, solve, and then figure out, is this true or false if A is equal to 6? Teachers pause while students work it through. Well, if A equals 6, I'm going to substitute a 6 in for my A. 4 plus 6 is going to be 10. I'm going to always rewrite everything. I have to keep my symbol going the same way. I'm just rewriting it. Is 10 greater than 2? It is. So this would be a true statement. Go ahead and write the next one. 12 minus y is greater than 8. Substitute y equals 6 and tell me if this is a true or a false statement. Well, now my variable is y. I'm going to substitute a 6 in. 12 minus 6 is 6. Is 6 greater than 8? No, it's not. So this is a false statement. Our next one, write it down. 36 divided by b is greater than 8 when b equals 6. Well, I know my b value is going to be 6, so I'm going to substitute a 6 in. 36 divided by 6, I can sing my 6 song. I already know 6 times 6 is 36. Keep my symbol going the same way. Is 6 greater than 8? No, just like the one before, it is still not greater than 8, so this would be another example of a false statement. Okay, and our last one on this page, z times 6 is greater than 50 when z is equal to 7. Is this a true or false inequality? Well, I have to plug in my variable. My variable is 7, so is 7 times 6? That's going to be 42. Is 42 greater than 50? No, it's not. So this would be another example of a false. So look at what we just did up there. What's one thing, share with your partner and be ready to share out to the group. What's one thing that is clear to you or makes more sense after doing these examples about determining if an inequality is true or false when you're given the value of a variable? So go ahead and we're going to do some more practice on your whiteboard. Determine if each equality or inequality is true or false for the given variable. So let's look at this one. Write it down. 7 plus y is less than or equal to 56 divided by 8. If y equals 8, go ahead and substitute that value in, evaluate it, but when you're done, your final step isn't just figuring out what both sides are. Does this inequality make it true or false? So I should see two numbers on there, and then I should see either a true or a false as well. So go ahead and solve. Okay, so my first job is to substitute. I'm going to put an 8 in for my y. 7 plus 7 is 14. One more would be 15. Is less than or equal to 56 divided by 8. I'm missing my 8 song. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56. 7 times 8 is 56, so it would be 7. Is 15 less than or equal to 7? Is that a true statement? No, it's not. So this would be a false statement. Okay, go ahead, check your answer and see if you went wrong. Where did you go wrong? Was it a computation error or a calculation mistake? Or was it not understanding the true or the false part? Okay, next problem. Go ahead and write it down on your board. 45 minus x is not equal to 6 times 4 if x is equal to 20. Go ahead and tell me first, solve each side, evaluate each side, and then tell me, is this a true or a false inequality? So the first thing I have to do, I'm going to find my inequality. I need to evaluate both sides to see if they're not equal, because that's what it says that they should be. So x equals 20. I'm going to plug in a 20 or substitute. 45 minus 20 is going to give me 25. Is 25 not equal to the product of 6 and 4? Well, let's see. 6, 12, 18, 24. Is 24 not equal to 25? That is a true statement. They are not the same value. So that would make it true. Okay, so go ahead and we're going to do the same thing on this one. Solve it on your board and then we'll go through it together. So I'm going to plug in a 7. Remember, when the number touches the variable, remember our default that they said in mathematics, that is there's a multiplication sign there. So that would be like 7 times 7. I know that's 49. So I'm going to test, is 49 greater than or equal to 9 times 6? I could do my 9 trick. I could sing my 9 song or my 6 song. 9 times 6 is 54. Is 49 greater than or equal to 54? No, 49 is not larger, so this would be another false inequality. Okay, go ahead and write the next one down. Remember this one, we've got a different symbol, but we know what that means. That's another way to write division. So 48 divided by b, is that less than 15 minus 8 if b is equal to 8? Go ahead and evaluate both sides and tell me if that's a true or a false inequality. So I'm going to substitute my 8 in. 48 divided by 8 would be 6. 6 is 6 less than 15 minus 8, which would be 7, because 7 is 14. One more would be 15. Is 6 less than 7? Stand up if you think that that's a true statement. Is this true statement? 6 is definitely less than 7, so this inequality is actually true if b is equal to 8. Okay, our final one on this page. Solve it on your board and tell me, is this a true or a false inequality? Okay, so let's plug in our numbers or substitute. It says x is 50. Y is 36, so I'm going to have 50 minus 36, and then 8 times 2. Now I have to evaluate. 50 minus 36, well, I'm going to count up 36, 46. That's 10 more, and then I need 4, so I'd be at 14. Is less than or equal to 8 times 2, 8, 16. Is 14 less than or equal to 16? Is that true or false? 14 is definitely less than 16, so this would be a true statement. So I want you to look at this and tell your partner, what steps do you need to follow to figure out if an inequality is true or false for a given variable. What steps do you need to take? So go ahead and discuss it together. Then I'm going to call on a group or two to see who can share what steps should you take. So if someone wasn't here today for the at-home learning day, what would we tell them? What steps would you go through to solve a problem like this? For those of you at home, hopefully you thought through the process as well. Our first step is we need to find out what is our variable worth, and then we need to substitute that variable in. Once we do that and we have all numbers, now we can actually evaluate each side. I can do my 7 times 7. I can evaluate this side and get a value. Then I can evaluate the other side and I can get one value. Once I have two values, I can look at my symbol and say, is that a true statement or is that a false statement? Again, I have to always read it left to right. Then I determine, is it true or false based on what I calculated each side of the to be. That is it for our lesson for today. We're going to go back and look at our learning target and see where we think we are. Where would you rate yourself in I can use substitution to determine if an equation or inequality is true or false? Where would you rate yourself? Would you be at a 1? You're not even sure where to start. A 3? Maybe you're close, but you're going to need some more practice. Or are you at a 4 or a 5? Okay, your teacher is going to explain to you what your assignment is if you're in class. If you're an at-home learner today, go back and read the directions in your Google Classroom for what your next steps are.